What's up, everyone? Azariel here, and welcome to a Yu-Gi-Oh 101 tips video where I will be demonstrating and explaining the methods as to how to use Pendulum Monsters and how to also make a build with what's currently out in the OCG and on Dueling Network and Yu-Gi-Oh Pro. So, with that being said, um, let's get started. I'm going to do my best. I haven't done like a tips video in quite some time, so it could be a bit rusty. So forgive me if you guys get confused again. But always feel free to like to ask a question in the video description, and I'll be sure to answer you guys ASAP. So, what are Pendulum Monsters? Well, first off, let's take a look at one of them. As you can see, Pendulum Monsters, they can be both effect monsters and normal monsters, such as Radiant Knight, which is the only normal Pendulum monster that they have right now. But Pendulum monsters are a fuse between regular monsters that would go in there or in your main deck and spell cards. For the time being, that's what they are. They are a fusion between monsters and spell cards, as told by the two colors on the cards. And the reason for that is that the Pendulum monsters get placed in pendulum zones that are on the field, and they are treated as spell cards while they are in those zones. Now, when they get destroyed via card effect, they get sent to the extra deck face up, and you'll be able to do special summon them via the pendulum summoning method from your extra deck, as well as other monsters in your hand. Now, one thing you have to know is that pendulum monsters, they have two card effects. And as you can see right here with Time Gazer Magician as an example, the first effect is when they are placed in the pendulum zone. They have a effect for when they are treated as a spell card while in the pendulum zone, and they have another effect if they are an effect monster. They have another effect that can be used while it's treated as a monster while it's face up on or face up in the monster card zone. So, moving on to the next thing here. As you can see, there are numbers on the side of the card text, and these numbers are the Pendulum Scales. And the scale numbers represent the monsters that you are going to be able to pendulum summon, which is just another form of special summoning. So anything that can negate a special summon can negate a pendulum summon. So just to let you know, just to get that out the way. But the numbers represent scales that you use to determine which pendulum monsters which monsters you are able to special summon via the pendulum summoning method. So the whole goal with using a build using pendulum monsters is to get the highest scale number and the lowest scale number that you can put on the in those zones on your side of the field, so that you can max out what or so you can max out your options when it comes to the pendulum summoning method. So let's say, for example, if I have Stargazer Magician and Time Gazer Magician on the field, and they are both in their pendulum card zones. Like the numbers on each of the monsters. With Stargazer Magician, its scale number is 1, and with Time Gazer Magician, its scale number is 8. So if those two are in the zones, then the monsters that I will be able to perform the pendulum summon with would have to be monsters that have levels between those two numbers. So between 1 and 8, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that would be the level of monster I would be able to pendulum summoning. So another thing a is that you can special summon as many monsters from your hand or from your extra deck, or any from your hand, or any number of pendulum monsters from the extra deck as you are able to summon. But you're only allowed a pendulum summon once per turn. So anytime during your main phase 1 or during your main phase 2, granted that you didn't use it during main phase 1, you can pendulum summon any number of monsters from your hand or any pendulum monster from your extra deck, uh, using the pendulum summoning method, and you can do as many as you want to, as many as you're able to do. So that's another thing that you have to know about these monsters. Another thing is they are not considered special summon monsters such as rituals, fusions, synchros, exceeds, etc. They are still considered normal, they're still considered to be regular monsters, so they can be normal summoned or tribute summoned, just like you would do any other regular monster in your main deck. So I actually had to find this out the hard way, because when I first started using the Pendulum Monsters, I didn't have a clue as to what the rules were, and somebody told me that I can only pendulum summon these monsters, which is a lie. And I found out that the rules do state that they can be normal summoned or tribute summoned. And just to show you that I'm not lying here, I'm not lying. I'm gonna head to Yugi Wiki just to show you. Here's the page for Pendulum Monsters, and you see it right here, clear as day. Pendulum Monsters are not special summon monsters like Fusion, Ritual, Synchro, and Exceeds. They can be normal or tribute summon. So, like you heard it from the horse's mouth, like you seen it right there. But yeah, they can be normal or tribute summon. And now moving on to the next portion of the video, where I talk about how to go about making a build with what's available uh, at the moment. Now, to how I go about building a deck using Pendulum Monsters. Now, this is where it gets kind of confusing for some people. For some, it may be simple. For some, it may be confusing. But we'll see. Of course, again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, and I will answer them ASAP. Now, as I stated earlier in the video, the way to go about making a build using Pendulum Monsters is by using the two Pendulum Monsters that have the highest and the lowest number. That's the strategy with going into, or at least from my experience, that's what you want to do. And the reason for that is, again, you increase your options as to what you're able to special summon via the pendulum summoning method, and that's basically the reason why you want to have the highest and lowest number. That way you can increase your options to do so. And right now, the best combination of Pendulum Monsters to use is Odd Eyes, Pendulum Dragon, Time Gazer Magician, and Stargazer Magician. The reason why I pointed out these three: Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon is a searcher for the Pendulum Monsters. When it's set in a zone, in a pendulum zone, during the end phase, you can destroy it. You can send it to the extra deck face up, and you can search out a pendulum monster that has 1500 or less attack from the deck to your hand. So you can search out a pendulum monster that has 1500 or less attack. So first off, Time Gazer Magician and Stargazer Magician, they both have 1200 attack, so they qualify to be searched. So you can search them out, as well as other monsters such as Tiptoed and Scorpion. But the reason why I pointed out Time Gazer and Stargazer Magician is because they were made to work together. When they are in the pendulum zones as long, or if you do not have another magician monster, such as Time Gazer or Stargazer, or an Odd Eyes monster, such as Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, their scales become 4. Like their scales become 4, and that can be very problematic because you may not have monsters that are between levels, or at least right now, from my experience. Again, not saying that they aren't out there. Maybe I haven't looked, but from my experience, from what I've used, um, you know, the best monsters to use with the pendulum builds, they don't have like lower levels like that. I think there's one. Let me search them out. It's a good thing I have this pendulum, because I want to make sure. Let me take this off the type of card it is. Pendulum. Right now, the only monsters that they have to search out that can actually use the pendulum uh, summoning method, so like to their advantage, is Magic Whip Dragon, Ether Weapon, Hypno Sister. Can use them. Can use the amount of pendulum monsters that are in the pendulum zones to its advantage. And you have Breaker, the Dark Magical Warrior, which gains more counters when it is summoned to the field via the pendulum summoning method, and it gains more attack power, and you have more counters to use to destroy your opponent's spells and traps and what have you. Never mind Pendulum Machine, it's just there. It's just a normal monster, you know. But as you see, the pendulum monsters, or the monsters that can be summoned via the pendulum summoning, method, can, like, the monsters that work with that summoning, they're very few at the moment. So if you make a build using, these monsters, then you just have to be aware that you absolutely want the highest and the lowest number. That's what you want. Like without that, you're going to pretty much be, you know, um, up in the jam. So, what else I gotta cover? Yeah, so when you look at the monsters that can work with it, you obviously want to max out on Time Gazers and Stargazer Magician. They're meant to work with each other. They have the highest and lowest number, which is what I explained earlier in the video. That's what you want. And, Odd Eyes Dragon obviously is meant to work with them, and it can search out those other two. So you would want to max out on that as well. So that's 9 cards right there. And since Odd Eyes isn't really going to be used to, something like Pendulum Summon, you're pretty much going to use that to search out Time Gazer Magician and Stargazer Magician. Now, you don't need, both zones occupied in order to throw a Pendulum monster in a zone. So don't let nobody tell you otherwise. You can do, what I'm saying, you can just throw Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon in either the left or right zone, and you can use its effect like that. You don't need another monster in the other zone in order to use its effect. You can only do the pendulum summoning once per turn. Of course, I do believe I mentioned that. And when you look at all the other cards that are out there, there's Spellstone Cannon, which has an effect that destroys face-up spells and traps during the end phase. It was activated as a spell card in the Pendulum Zones. So that can be good for like Royal Decree, Fiendish Chain, pretty much any face-up continuous, spells or traps out there, or any normal trap cards that are treated as equip cards, you know, anything, that can come in handy. And Radiant, it's a normal monster. It's a normal pendulum monster. It's a level 4. It can be normal summon, but it has a scale number of level 7. I mean, a scale number of 7. So that can come in handy in a tight spot as well. So let's say for whatever reason used up all of your Stargazer. I mean, so like all of your Time Gazer magicians. You can throw this in there, or like throw it in your side deck for whatever, you know, in the event that you feel like you may want another monster that has high or a high scale number. So another thing is when you look at the other monsters via pendulum summoning, um, they don't have much to offer. Like with Tiptoed, Silverclaw, and Scorpion, like your best bet with them is Tiptoed and Silverclaw to summon a level 4 monster from your hand or extra deck. That's your best option. Now, they do have some benefits, but if we're talking about some consistency, then um, Time Gazer, Stargazer, Magician, and Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, those three are your best choices when it comes to this. On top of the fact that they can't work with the other Pendulum monsters such as Time Gazer, Stargazer, and Odd Eyes, and Odd Eyes, and with Time Gazer and Stargazer, they have an effect that if you don't have another Magician monster or an Odd Eyes monster in the other zone, its scale becomes 4. That can be problematic. And these monsters, they they just don't work well right now. They have some effects, and I'm pretty sure that somebody can make a build using the Intermates and throwing in Radiant Knight in there to increase the amount of options that you have. But for some efficiency, etc., then you want to go with, these 3 monsters for sure. Just max out on them and just place monsters in your main deck that has numbers that are between the scale numbers that you have in your main deck. So if I'm running Stargazer, Time Gazer, etc., I'm going to have monsters that are level, at least level 2 to 7 in there, so that I'll be able to use the pendulum summoning method no problem. So that's something. And that's pretty much it, man. That's everything. I don't think there's anything else I need to explain. I think I covered everything. And yeah, man, I hope that this video helped to some degree and to help clear up any confusion that people have been having in regards to these monsters and to how to make a build with them. I hope that I helped out, some, and you guys are now less confused when it comes to pendulum summoning monsters. And again, if you have any questions, of course, ask in the video description. I'll answer them ASAP, and we can move on from there. So thanks for watching. Peace. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you guys for another Yu-Gi-Oh 101 video.